Hello, everybody. I'm trying to put together some thoughts here for what we can anchor in and make some changes now. And then for the remainder of this week and next week, anchor them in and then lock in so we have some standard structure going into Mimecast. So we don't have a lot of time to reflect on lessons learned. So I put the 2-hour thing together. Please give me feedback, but I put together these thoughts. So I've decided to update my begging, and I think I'm going to use the power of puppy. Here's what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to not analyze or try to tell me what my message is. What I'm asking you to do is find ways that I can help you specifically. I don't want you to talk about the team, lead with you, about all the things that we're doing. How can I make it easier for you? I got a window here. I want you to just riff, so please put that together. So what I also want to do is I want to follow a process. I want to start making sure that we're much more disciplined. The discipline will help. And what I'm asking to do is get some help on how I communicate this structure, because each step has its own thing. And here's sort of the conundrum I'm running into. It seems like some of us don't do the exact assignment on time so that we get the benefit from it. The flip side is some of us will tell me, well, I don't really know what to do with the assignment and where are we going. So I'll provide the whole picture. So when I provide the whole picture, it gets overwhelming because people don't know where to start from. It's sort of like this chicken and the egg kind of thing, and we need to sort it out. So here's a process view that we're going to talk about. And again, it's in the email also. And then I'm going to summarize this up at the end. But just real quickly to frame out, what I'm asking us to do is get unfiltered feedback. So this is the puppy power. I want unfiltered feedback from everybody within 2 days. Then Thursday, I want to set up a group call on Thursday. And what I want to do in that group call is I want to time box it to 30 minutes and just talk about that criteria. What criteria will we use in order to evaluate all of our findings? Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to have one-on-one calls. All of our one-on-one calls with each of us will be by Friday. That's to lock in the template of what your role is, what your deliverables are, and then how will you evaluate our group call. Then we're going to set up a group call for 90 minutes to review. So that should be reviews. And we're going to go through and review this deck and review any of the additions that we've got together. Review this deck together, and we're going to spend 90 minutes, but we're going to be structured about it. Okay, we're going to have a format. You must follow the format. If we don't follow the format, we're not going to get anywhere. Yes, we want you to provide your own feedback, but we don't want you to provide your own structure too. Then we're going to have one-on-one alignment. One-on-one aligning meetings based on what you've learned from the one-on-one. So schedule a one-on-one meeting with me by Thursday of the following week. Then I'm going to work together over the findings on over the weekend, and then we're going to review sort of our process that we're going to follow with discipline on Monday. So as you can see, I try to work backwards from sort of a kickoff. I'm anticipating a kickoff on Monday for Mimecast. So we've got a lot of prep to do, and then we don't have a lot of time to review lessons learned. And I'm not getting, I know that was a 2-hour brain dump, but I haven't gotten the feedback end to end from you guys. So we want to provide some structure to be able to do it and synthesis of some of the things that I'm learning here. That's what we're doing. Okay. So here are, basically the findings. Number one, what are we doing? In all of our engagements that are in the prototype stage, we're just laying the foundation. If you're worried about what the windows look like, you're the wrong kind of people on this job. This job is the concrete guys. This is for the people who lay the FUBAR. This is for the people who do the land surveying. There's a group of people who build the house that come in and do this, and then they go. That's us. We're the prototype team. We're laying the foundation, period, end of subject. So let's lock that in. We've got a lot of work to do just on this. Let's not make it harder by thinking about a whole bunch of other scope. Number two, this is our process. We have a process. It's a creative process. It starts simple. It gets more complex as we understand things. Then we start the process of untangling the untangling. This is C. This is solve. C, solution. C, solution. What's going to happen is we're going to start simple, just like we did at Omnitrax, just like we did at IQVIA. Then it's going to get overwhelming, and we're going to run into these different parts. And then it's going to start getting simpler again and go, wow, right? This is a common pattern. We need to lock in on recognizing it. Number three, know your role. Swim in your lane. It doesn't make sense for an electrician to come in and start telling the cement people where to pour the cement. Doesn't make any sense. But what you need to do is get really focused. What role are you doing, and how are you contributing to the overall mission? What was your role? How are you supposed to contribute to IQVIA? What was your role? How were you supposed to participate in Omnitrax? What's your role? How are you supposed to participate in Mimecast? Very, very, very simple, but just know that's what it is. This is a team effort. This isn't a you effort. And with that, that's sort of the thing. You have to show up being a superhero. We're not going to be able to combat productitis, the evil villain that's destroying the villages at IQVIA, or destroying the villages at Mimecast. We're not going to be able to defeat it unless we show up as a superpower team. If you're not willing to put your super suit on and going to be confined by your business suit, you're not helping out the team. Defeat productitis and to lay the foundation, we need to be a superpower team, which means we have to embrace a story. The reason that we have to embrace a story structure and learn how to do it. We're like a production facility. We make a movie. We don't run a project. But what does that mean to you? What expectations should you have moving into this? And how can you help us manage expectations of the client and work together collaboratively with your teammates, not individually? It's about a story. The reason that it's about a story is because Mimecast's story is too complex for a standard scripted pitch. IQVIA's story is too complex for a standard scripted pitch. Omnitrax's economic value story is too complex for a standard scripted pitch. We have to embrace improv. We have to embrace that it's a story, and we have to help make sure that we're delivering both the economic benefits through the emotive lens. That's storytelling. We need to tap our superpowers. I added this graphic here because Walter's video over the weekend just really motivated me. But we have to tap our superpowers. Everybody knows that there's that bias, that bias about finding the gorilla. We're going to search for Bigfoot. So basically, what we have to do is we have to train our brains and not look for the obvious things. We have to profile, and then search for Bigfoot. You have to learn how to document. You have to learn how to be like a detective and just write down all the facts, organize them so we have that as a database. So that's tedious work, but it's not hard. It's just blocking down and organizing the thoughts in your way through your lens, and then saying, here's what I'm seeing. Here's the Bigfoots that I'm seeing. And then we talk about that. And if we need to role play out and really model that out about that stupid, the stupid people looking for Bigfoot, then we're going to do that. But that's what we need to be able to do to be talking about Bigfoot. Number 7, what we have to do as individuals and embrace the 7 mindset shifts and also make sure that we're following the principles. If we're not following the principles, none of this is going to work. Okay, so please, I want your feedback on those 7 observations. Please, I'm asking you to just relate. Do they make sense? Talk out loud how you're going to anchor it. Talk out loud about the gap between the last time and on IQVIA or on IQVIA, now what you're going to do next. Please, it's so important you give me those insights so that I can create the right kinds of structures that you need in order to participate easier. This is the only chance that we're going to have, so please take advantage of it. Please, please, please help me help you. How can you resist that puppy? Honestly. All right. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to take this. So Tim's done or Conceptor has done a good job of starting to lay this out. We need to start transforming this hero's journey as we learn about it into something that's business facing. The ordinary world, special world, it would be great if we could have this say from what to what, and then current state, future state. We can start adapting this and making it look more professional. Where I need help, I want these fields here to be labeled. I need to be interviewed of what these fields are. So I don't know what role that is. So that's interesting to me. It might be activator. Activator is not on our team yet. So maybe each of you guys could take turns at doing it, which would be valuable along the way. So part of what we need to do is we need to have this view have 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. Because there's a lot of things that we can build off of this structure that are more planning and abstract, but that's what we need to be able to do. We need to start turning this into a planning tool, just not some slide. This is a slide we have to use. The other thing that we need to do is we need to embrace this. We don't need to go through all the details. I'm going to ask you guys with my puppy power to give me some ideas of what this looks like. But what we need to do is recognize what these parts are and just build different ones of these parts. The formula here is always the hardest, and it's the one that's the most valuable too. So as you can see, there's different parts along the way. It would be great if we could each take stabs. Maybe I'll send the deck the possibility pitch, just the individual slides, and you can group where you think the slides fit. It's just something to get us talking about what this is rather than just having it be a slide that we don't use. The thing that, though, I think that one of the critical success factors for us moving into this engagement that we didn't do nearly enough, we don't need new ideas. I don't need new ideas. I need ideas of how to apply the ideas that we've got. We need to be using our tools. So when we have something like this, that means we have to use it. And we have to talk about how we're using it, because the talking about how we're using it is the experience. It's the experience stupid, talking about how we're using things. How are we understanding things? And documenting that stuff is what's valuable. That's the foundation that Mimecast is going to need, because they're going to need to recognize that they have to move off of a scripted play and move to improv. And that's a big, big shift. The other thing that we need to do is we need to have a model here of this where we have space and we can fill these things in so we can start collecting some of the key ideas. Maybe they're just individual slides that we've got from just general decks. This is a giant synthesis tool. Helps us think through what the world is so that we keep it scoped. Helps us figure out what the setting is so that we can be in alignment. Help us figure out what the value story is, the economic value story. Help us figure out the plot. Help us figure out the format. All of these things are ingredients that we're going to need in order to storyboard. Okay, so here's another thing that I'd like us to concentrate on. I got 2 parts, and then I'm gonna do some puppy power plea, and then I'm gonna give you guys an example of what I'm struggling with right now to solve for. So what we are doing is we're manufacturing the economic value messaging platform. And what we're doing in phase 1, prototype phase, is laying the foundation. That's what we're doing, laying the foundation. Laying the foundation. We're not training. We're not worried about the B-reps. We're concentrating specifically on what the message needs to be as delivered by a top rep. Period. End of subject. We are not worried about B-reps. Adoption strategy is part of what we would build in the preparation stage. We will provide some ideas and suggestions, but the work that we have to do to help share the lessons learned from Mimecast of what we're going to learn over this course and where they have gaps is hyper critical important, or else we're always going to be reacting to the stress and the chaos at the end, and everything's going to catch us by surprise. It's a pattern that exists, and we must break it. So what I'm highlighting is the manufacturing process has 3 elements, and again, these are a draft. I'm trying to put things together. This is a prototype. What I want us to do is beat it up and keep refining it so that we lock in and say, yes, this is a structure that I can buy into, and then we'll use it and see if it works and make tweaks along the way. But we got to build foundational things, and we got to build prototypical things that we build together, or we're not practicing what we're preaching. So point number 1, bullet point number 1 is blueprint. A blueprint is just architecture of the information. Here's the little logo. What it is, it's about relevancy. What we want to do is capture the logic of the economic value. A lot of people time out during this process. It's incredibly important. If you're not involved in doing a lot of that heavy lifting, that's fine. You should still be collecting some things and trying to just stay aware, but you don't need to know exactly what's happening. Just know that we're laying out this information. The second stage is the composition, the logic of the story. So in this stage, what we're doing is we're taking the just cold hard economic facts, and now what we're doing in this stage is building the slides. These would be the slide building process. They don't need to be in order. What we need to do is just be concentrating on all the key points that are in our blueprint. Are we making them relatable to the audiences, plural, and the various scenarios that they would be in use for? You have to recognize that when we get into this stage and we're talking about composition, there's a whole bunch of other factors involved. So please, we got to find out some rules about what to follow, not to follow, what to question, not to question, because that's a huge opportunity for us to save a lot of time. If we think about the composition, it's the sheet music, it's in context, it's shape. We're taking the shape of the slides, plural. This is where riffs come up. This is where we develop riffs. This is where we develop the key slides and anchor them to key stakeholders. This does not absolutely need to be sequenced. Let's not worry about the sequencing here. That'll just make this go slow. Got to separate that out. Then the last part then is, now that we have the blueprint architecture, the logic of the story, now we have to we're in sequencing and roles and who's going to do what. And that's a different type of thing. So we need to have these things in place to do that. And what we might find is that some will be blank, and we're going to have to go back and make some slides to fill in the gaps, but that's okay. It's totally okay, totally normal. And then what we're talking about here is making it timely. All right. So in order for that whole process to work, these things must be in place and they must be orchestrated. One, we have to know what our mission is. We work backwards from our mission. Our mission is to cure productitis, to fight the productitis villain. But we're going to be even more specific about it, right? That's like our default. And in order to do that, we have to follow the principles. On all calls, I'm going to ask somebody different to read off what the principles are and provide, I'm going to ask everybody a spot check on each of the principles, one thing that they learned that week about why the principles are important. And we're going to do that in every single call. Even one-on-one calls, I'm going to ask you. Be prepared. We have to use the principles way more. They make everything easier when we follow them. They help us play our superhero roles. They help us get out of our business suits, and they help us anchor it in that we're in service of something else. Okay, the next thing is, sort of going across the horn. That's one band. Another band is that we have a process. I need to build this gated, follow the steps, do not skip them. Each part is going to be challenging because there's details within each step, and it's going to get confusing unless we think about a gated process. You have to show up to be prepared. The whole idea is to level set expectations of what's expected of you to show up, quote unquote, prepared for a meeting. You need to show up prepared for meetings. After the first month, I'm going to disinvite people who don't show up to meetings prepared. It's just too much dead weight. We can't have that. The thing that I'm trying to avoid, I want to avoid that meeting that we had where Jen just talked to us about what we're not producing. And then on Monday we showed up and we had silence. We cannot have that. Basically what that does is we're not being change agents and we're not driving and helping. In this case, it's going to be Nick. We're not helping Nick, the change agent himself. So what we have to do is we have to show up and we got to check our own feelings and create high energy that's tuned and on message. The way you stay on message is you follow the principles, period. Because the principles are tied to the mission and the overall approach. I need feedback from you on the process. Discipline. You've got to stay in your role. You've got to practice your role. You got to keep a cadence with the catalyst, and you have to embrace and talk about the mindset shifts constantly. We need to work on templated inputs. These would be the documents, the organization of how you collect information. Think about those as data collection forms. That'll be sort of the tedious work. How do we collect the information in a structured way of the tedious work? Then we have to have creative conflict. We have to create way more of it. The only creative conflict we created is at the end when we're surprised, and that's anxiety-driven frustration that is completely unnecessary. We have to embrace conflict way earlier. And then I need a lot of help on innovating some output templates. One of the challenges that's really difficult is when you get to output format or quote unquote deliverables, part of it is we're inventing structures along the way. We need to be able to, have people who are looking at that as well. Okay, so puppy power here. Please pause here and give me some of your reactions. What does it mean? How are we going to track all of these different things? What does that look like? If you're asking me to track all of that stuff, and we're taxing with a massive amount of administrative burden, it shouldn't be that easy. What's our balancing act? How do we run this? We're smart, intelligent adults. Let's have healthy conversations. Please tell me what we need to be able to do. How do we model this out? How do we be industrial engineers? Tell me the thought process for you as a superhero. How does the Justice League better serve you? Okay, now what I want to do is I want to walk through a site. Here's an example of everything that I mean. I put this together a while ago. What I did is I was trying to practice a lot of these things, and I got to tell you, it's super hard to do all this stuff yourself. So let's watch this video together here. Maybe you've seen it. It's only 2 minutes, so don't worry about it. It's not that long.
Are you tired of losing deals to no decision? If so, this video is for you. Meet Cindy. She is your salesperson. This is Steve. He's the decision maker. Cindy and Steve have just finished a meeting where she's given him a great idea that will help his business. Steve wakes up the next day, and the idea isn't so compelling to him as it was yesterday. He doesn't know exactly why, it just doesn't feel right. The momentum of the conversation fades, and over time, Cindy can't get Steve on the phone again. Cindy's deal has been lost to no decision. What happened? He couldn't envision how he'd turn the idea into a successful outcome. Not knowing what to do next, he just put the idea on hold, and eventually his enthusiasm for it faded. This won't happen when you hire growth enablement ecosystems. We know that Steve's company is risk-averse. Before putting his neck on the line, he's going to make sure he can be successful. That means Steve is going to gain buy-in from many different people before committing. First, to his team. so he knows it's even real. Then, his peers, so they know what's in for them. Finally, to a committee to get the unbudgeted funding to be successful. How do we know this? We've spent the last 10 years studying complex sales from the buyer's perspective and have modeled how the most successful executives navigate their agreement networks. We use these patterns as templates to design the messages, tools, and training your salespeople need to help drive internal selling. Contact us today to learn how you can stop losing to no decision.
Okay, so what did you think of that video? So what I did is I took that video, and first of all, what are your reactions real quickly? Isn't that very similar to routes to value? Then what I did is I took that and I storyboarded it out and I made this microsite. Why it happened. I took the graphics exactly from the video and then filled out the messaging. Separate ways will depart, values in the eye of the beholder. Why do they get that bad feeling? Going dark, blah, blah, blah. Conclusion, we have lots of data to support us. Then there's how to prevent it. 3 keys to internal selling. Reduce his personal risk. Help him communicate what's in it for him. Create cohesion across his agreement network. So you can see there's, by the way, this is all before any of the graphics that we have for routes to value or anything like that. What are steps to fix it? Diagnose the situation. Model your customer's world. Write the possibility outcome story. Design the treasure map. Plot, that's the value map, right? I don't like calling it the value map because people get really, it's not good messaging. But you know, it is what it is. Plot their success journey. Storyboard the process. Rehearse. Then take the show on the road. Learn by doing. So all of this stuff is literally exactly what we're doing for this engagement. Then there's the about us. Some messaging in here that I think is, you know, a lot is still applicable. Some quotes. You know, we use science, data, and experience for results. Overcoming we leverage scientific principles to make better decisions based on economic, social science, complex, blah, 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 blah. And in this picture, decision-making challenges, best practices of treating the wrong problem. You have the wrong data, analyzing the wrong variables, no data, poor results. And look, overcoming these cognitive biases, which we've already talked about, poor decisions create confusion, misalignment, and friction. These were all the best ways that I can message it myself with my own graphic ability before. This is all before Tim. Contact us. How to get started. So here's an evaluation process to go through. Again, it's very process oriented. These are gates. Let's do a discovery. Then you can decide to continue or not. Let's frame it out. Let's frame the situation out. Yes or no. Propose, yes or no. Engage, yes or no. Here are the steps. We're going to discover, we're going to frame, we're going to propose, we'll engage, we'll contact. So it's all laid out here. I think the content in here is pretty good. I change a lot. If I could change anything, it's sort of the format. It just feels sort of clunky, and I want to update the video. Here's the deal. I'd like us, for the most part, the way that we're going to be more successful is if we're concentrating on building content that we've already got. If we take this messaging here and concentrate and say, what do we need to detangle? And build the prototype in phase 1 for detangling. I don't need the detangler to worry about Mindcast in the first month. What I need him to be doing is sharing detanglers with us every day to reinforce, to make sure we're on our mindsets and our principles. And then we'll figure out in phase 2, month 2, when Act 2 starts, that's when we'll introduce detanglers to Mimecast. So we'll have a month of role playing out and a month of tweaking it based on something all of us can observe. This content here, this website, which is in the link, and this video. And we are going to make our own video update. Because by the way, that's going to help us practice the messaging that we need to do for Mimecast anyway. We are going to redo this microsite. We're going to do all of the things that are in here, and we're going to do that with the eye of how we're communicating progress to Mimecast. We're also going to do that with an eye of selling more gigs, so all of us get paid more. So all of that stuff is what we're going to do in the first month. So that's what we're going to do there. So my puppy power plea is, what are your reactions to that? How will we do it? How does that fit? What are your reactions? And can you see sort of the challenges of how I would structure a production team? First, what's the idea of a microsite? Or we're building a video commercial, targeted video commercial. How do we script that? What does that look like? How do we do it in a reasonable budget? I paid $500. We'll pay $500 again. We'll go get somebody on Fiverr to put it together. Or if you want to, I just don't think that's needed. I want us to work on the process and making sure that we're learning to put it together, so we can all be proud of. So those are your thoughts. How are we going to repeat this work, and what are we going to do to make it better? Tangler, what do we need to learn from all of our roles, and how do we make sure our roles are doing? Architect, what is the architecture of how we do it, and how does that map to the architecture that we've got, and how do we communicate what we're doing? Conceptor, what creative advice can you give us here, and how would you help direct it? Activator, how do we put it into action and make sure all the words are on message and alike, and how do we activate our team so we're not just doing stuff for doing stuff's sake, we're doing a production that's going to be, a real live production that's going to be high quality. How do we get all of these things down in practice in the first month? That's what we need to do. All right. Other elements here, I just try to put some thoughts in it. I thought these might be useful. These are less structured. I try to say, look, in terms of the blueprint process, we've had structure for process in both occasions. We had it here at OmniTracks, and I followed this. We didn't follow it. I tried to follow this as best as I could. It just became so overwhelming trying to give you guys the feedback and the constant feedback loop. We have to change this somehow and stick to, look, if this is client facing, let's make sure we understand what this means. So we're going to put together a graphic that looks like this for Mimecast, and everybody's going to get tested to make sure that they understand what it means and what it means for them in particular. So I love ideas on how we can do this to where it doesn't feel like a proctoral exam and that we make it fun. But there's a lot of things in here we just didn't execute because we were so reactive and not sticking to a cycle. We need to have balance on that, and I'd love your thoughts on what that looks like and what your expectations could be. The same thing here. What we need to be able to build is there's a creation process. We need lots of inputs that are structured from different processes. Then we follow our process, our mixing process, our staging process, start organizing it out. Then we need to start concentrating on form factors to organize it for sales consumption. Then we need to integrate it into whatever their sales methodology is and whatever. These are very discrete, different things. If you try to do all of it or just concentrate solely on your one piece and not in this flow, doesn't help. We're also going to need to be making observations about what is their prioritization process and governance process, because this provides the inputs for our readout afterwards. And that's all how we do upsell and everything like that. Feedback on how to make this more structured and repeatable, I'd love. Now, one of the things that I worked on with Canal, and we were debating back and forth, so I'd love to complete this. This is maybe the job for architect, is how do we come up with some common terminology to introduce process excellence? One of the things that Kunal and I have observed, in going through things at PCVs, people don't have process excellence. Let's make sure that we have our own standard definitions of process. I'm not going to read these things out. I'm going to request that somebody reacts, that you react to it and say, hey, what do these things mean? How much do we document? How detailed of a documentation that we have? Because remember, with every detail creates more opportunities for things to be misunderstood. How do we create the right minimum amount of information? And then how do we use this vocabulary to help us understand the difference between action activities, verbs and nouns, and all the stuff that's in the conundrums. Then we also have the what's possible selling process too, and how does this fit in? We just have to do a better job of talking about where these things fit and envisioning it. So please help me give us our own better blueprint of what this looks like. How do I communicate this better? What details do you need? What ideas do we have? What kinds of role plays can you have? Just sort of envision, help me, my puppy power plea, help me, please help me communicate the dots. I think I'm communicating great with these things. Is it not being able to find them? Is it not having a microsite? Is it not blocking on the process? You got to help me think about some ideas so we make it better. All right. Then in terms of the composition process, frankly, I'm lost here. I need a lot of puppy power plea here. How would we take things down and start structuring information? How do we have a conversation to talk about structuring and organizing information? And then the last part in terms of storyboard, let's talk about what our need is. What our need is once we've gone through the blueprinting phase, the blueprinting stage, I don't want to call it phase, like we will do these things staggered. So it's not all at once. So the blueprinting workflow. The blueprinting workflow will get us these kinds of, slides like this. But we need to know how to start talking about arranging them. The arrangement of these things and how we title them is so important. So how do we create a mechanism to allow us to look at the whole story end to end and to be able to give feedback and suggestions and notation, and to be able to take the recordings that we're going to capture and just sort of break it down. And instead of trying to everybody worry about, do I understand all the things in the deck? That's not your job. Your job is what? The detangler's job is in this process is what? Architect's job in this process is what? We can't keep repeating efforts. What we need to do is we need to be specializing. So how do we break this down? We have slides that we can do that with. That's why I want to do the whole experiment with the are you losing a no decision wrap? How do we improve that? But let's start doing these things in action instead of in the concept. We got to move out of the concept. And then in terms of that storyboard process, what we want to be able to do is take all of the interviews and the structure so there's a backbone, and then we color code it. As you can see, as this advances around the wheel, I want us to be able to start having ways like this. This exterior gives us information about what we're looking at. It helps us chunk the information and says what we're doing is we're trying to stage these slides. What combination of slides go with this part of the journey, or this part of the journey, or this part of the journey, and then maybe we say these are the slides involved. Here's some highlights, and then here's some notes for IQVIA, or here's some, I don't know. We just got to talk through what we would put here so that we can embed the information and make it way easier for everybody to share information with each other. Okay, so that's about all I have as a wrap. So my puppy power plea is, what do you think of the storyboard process? Okay, now I told you I was going to talk about my asks and give you more specifics. So my first one is, all you have to do is react at each puppy power plea stage in this video and give me your feedback at each puppy power plea stage. please refer back to the, whatever slides are in each puppy power section, puppy power please section, because I want to know what you're talking about. And that's all I'm asking you. Unfiltered feedback, like, hey, this is how it triggers me. These are what my reactions are. Here's what you can do better to help me engage better. Just talk like that, like a fucking human being to another human being. Don't put your stupid business suit on, God damn it, please. The next one is, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a group call, and we're gonna establish criteria of how we will go through this call. So we can reference this call, but we're not gonna talk about this call. We're gonna come up with criteria. And that's something that we're gonna do a lot more of, is because we have to show up to meetings prepared and disciplined and structured. And that means all of us buying into what criteria of what the meeting's gonna be like. Now, I know that sounds like having a meeting to have a meeting, but it's not, because we're creating criteria. And the fact that you're participating in the criteria through your lens and your superpower lens is valuable. You will add more value to the lens if you just give gut feedback, because you'll sleep on it and then you'll say, oh, I wish I would have thought these things. Then we'll say, here's what our criteria is, how we'll evaluate it. And that'll be a fun call if people have done that. So that's what I want to get that done by Thursday. Then on Friday, I want to have done one-on-one reviews with each of you. And this is where I get to help you. This isn't a deliverable view. This is a collaboration call to say, let's come up with a template through the lens of detangler, through the lens of architect, through the lens of conceptor, whatever, how you will evaluate and take back feedback so that you're more prepared the next time in the future. Because honestly, I think we're too flat-footed. So what we have to do is we have to create templates to know what to pay attention to, so that when we're playing when we're hearing a riff or we're hearing music, then we know what instruments we should be paying attention to. Then we're going to have our group call where we're going to review everything, and I'm going to order that, and I'm going to ask you very specific questions. Just answer the questions that you're asked, right? So I will have an agenda and process for that. And we'll do that on Tuesday of next week. Then I'm going to have a one-on-one call with each of you. And then we're going to review what your existing template was, then what your first takes of what your findings are, and I'm going to help you tune them. Part of what, by me helping you tune them, I'm getting on the collective message as well. By doing that, I will start working on the findings. Obviously, it's going to take me over the weekend to do it. And then I'm going to share the findings and then what our game plan is for our kickoff on Monday. Now, it's important as heck that we hit all these timetables. This is what will allow us to move more quickly. So 2 days here, by Thursday here, by Friday here. So here's the other advantage. Look at all these feedbacks you get to how your project is going to be run. You get to provide unfiltered feedback. Then we're going to have we have a group call. So this is individual feedback just to me or to the group. It doesn't matter. The next one, and here, chances are you're not, if you're like most of your peers, you're not watching the video of others. So by you not watching the video of others, you're not getting empathy for me, right? So I get that. That's we have a group call. I want you to pay attention when we're on group calls, what your peers are asking too, and what my feedback is and how you can help me simplify it. Not just stand there and wait for your part for you to talk. Then we've got another one-on-one opportunity, and it's a double check to make sure you're on message with your superpower, etc. Don't overthink this, all right? Don't overdo it. Let's just make sure the goal is getting it clear. Then you have another opportunity for a group call where I actually get to go through all this stuff. So this is review feedback, get prepared, have a meeting. So we're structured and ordered together, and we go somewhere and we have order. Then it's one-on-one calls again. Then there's findings that I produce in document form. We write them down, and then we review the findings together. What are lessons learned based on each one of these things? This is the process that we're going to go through. So, puppy power plea. How can I organize that better? Give me feedback on, I think that makes perfect sense. What are we going to do to help you get that documented? Do we need a schedule? Do we need task tracking? What do we need to do to make sure you just do the individual parts? These are very simple requests. How do we help you just do these simple things? That is what I'm doing the puppy power play. Lots of puppy power pleas here for the first part for unfiltered feedback. Or use your puppy power please. That's going to be the voice of you. My puppy power please for our group call to help figure out our criteria. So if you can turn this around as soon as possible, that's great. Then we'll have the one-on-ones and then so on, so on and so forth. How much of the process do I need to explain? That's sort of the phenomenon. Think of these as planks going through our change process in a microcosm. It's always going to be this way. Every work stream is going to start out with a small little task that you got to nail out ASAP. If you say, oh, I'll get to that on Thursday, you've missed the whole cycle. So that's what we're going to have to do is manage it that way. All right. Thank you very much. Take care.